everybody. Good morning, and welcome to our OKCMAR and MLSOK election virtual luncheon. We're doing virtual. We're going to see if we can maximize our attendance here today. So I expect we're going to be having a few more people join us in the next minute or two. So as you know, I should say who I am, shouldn't I? I'm Helen Bosman. I'm your association executive here at OKCMAR. And so let's just jump right in here. As you know, we've got 2 corporations and 2 boards of directors. And so we are, I have a representative from each board who's going to be helping us out here with the opening their membership meeting and giving us the results. We have Emily K. Mitchelson helping us out with OKCMAR's results today. And unless I've missed her, I don't see Emily K. with us at the moment. So we will start with MLSOK because that's what we can do. We can just get a bit flexible with it this morning. So we will start there. I do want to say thank you so much to our ballot counters who came to OKCMAR this morning and verified the voting results. So we will get started with that. So we'll have the results, and then I do want you guys to stay with us for our main speaker, who is Geoffrey Butler, the OKC Planning Director, and he's going to be talking about the housing study that just got finished up. So that is great, great information, great news there. So keep online with us. So as you know, each board has got its own set of bylaws, and I'll kind of fill you in as we go along. They've got their own rules, so we have to just keep things in parallel there. So Monty Strickland, I think I just saw your name a moment ago. So Monty, if you would like to unmute yourself, and we will start with you today, Monty. And I would like to just say, Monty is our 2021 MLSOK board president. And for the MLSOK board voting results, we need 5% of the managing participants to vote. And that's the brokers. We always get some calls every year, you know, because realtors are like, I can't see the vote. And we're like, I know, you've got to be a managing broker. So we had to get 5%, and we did really, really well this year. We got 16.79% of our brokers voting. So that is fabulous, and I'm going to turn it over to Monty now, and he's going to give you all the good bits. So Monty, if you would like to fill us in on who we are looking forward to on the 2022 MLSOK board, and a couple of things about what MLSOK board is up to in general this year.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'd be happy
Monty.
to, Helen. Thank you so much, guys. Welcome to the virtual meeting, and super excited about this, and super excited to hear the new members of the boards and to hear from our speakers. So again, thanks for everyone for taking time out of their day to attend. Just a couple of things that I always like to mention. MLSOK is in the top 10% nationally in size of the MLSs across the country. So that's something to definitely be proud of. It's something to to kind of tout. I mean, we're in the top 10% in lonely old Oklahoma. So that's a really good thing. We're always looking to for opportunities and to take advantage of things that may be out there for us. And so there's some very exciting things on the horizon that I'm super excited about. So also, I'd like to say on August the 4th, I believe it was, we presented the financial information to the board, and fortunately MLSOK is in a healthy position, and that's thanks to the membership and thanks to the excellent guidance that we get from our accounting staff and from the staff at OKCMAR. So we appreciate them very much as always. Something that's very near and dear to my heart is the upcoming virtual conference that we have. This was an idea that we had several years ago. This will be the 3rd annual version of that. Back when I was president in 2019, I always wanted to get people involved, and I want people to know, to try to maximize the value and what they're getting for their membership dollar. And so we had the idea of inviting the companies that we work with. When you log into the MLS, you have all these tools, and we want to know what those tools are, and some of you may not be using those tools. So we're we're going to have a virtual conference. We'll have presenters from each of those companies, and they will be touting their wares, so to speak, and taking you guys through kind of some tutorials and just to maybe familiarize yourself with something that you may not be using, again, to try to maximize that dollar that you're spending. So go to conference.mlsok.com. Again, conference.mlsok.com to register for that. And it's next week. It's on September 15th and 16th. So I want to thank Helen and John and the rest of the MLS staff for working extremely hard to get that set up for us, and Brad. And I really appreciate you guys as always. Also, we always want to try to push our public search portal, which is HomeSnap. So have them go to mlsok.com and make sure that we're taking full advantage of that. So with that, I'll go ahead and open the meeting, and we'll announce we have 3 board members leaving at the end of this year. So we definitely want to thank them for their service. That would be Jeff Langham, Anna Yarborough, and Paula Kimbrell. So they've served exceedingly well, and we appreciate them and all the value that they've added to the board. And the people that will be joining us next year will be, drumroll please, Barry Whittington from Remax First, JT Brown with McGraw, and Cheryl Willard with EXP. So congratulations to you all. Looking forward to your contributions to our board, and welcome aboard. No pun intended. So with that, I'll close the meeting and turn it back over to Helen. And again, thank you guys for the opportunity to serve as your president. It's been a joy, and we've been through some interesting times. So, I'm always trying to rally the troops and like I say, do the very best that we can for our membership. And I appreciate everyone very, very much.
Oh, thanks, Monty. Well, we appreciate you and your leadership, and welcome to our new MLSOK board members. We won't know the 2022 MLSOK board members until September the 29th. As I said, each board has got its own bylaws and its own little set of rules. So we will find out on September 29th, and we will announce that to you at that time. So congratulations, new MLSOK board members. Fabulous. As I said, the bylaws are a bit different, and we can only have 2 from each brokerage on MLSOK. But switching hats to OKCMAR, we can have 3 from each brokerage. And for OKCMAR, the quorum to meet was 3% of our membership to vote. We actually had, I think this may be a record, I will have to go back and check, but we had 20.2% of our membership vote for the OKCMAR board this year. So thank you so much for getting out and voting and encouraging everyone to do the same. It meant that we didn't have to send desperate emails, which is always appreciated. So this is great. So we do have our OKCMAR board president on the Zoom today, Stephen Ligon, but he's lost his voice. So we have asked our Secretary Treasurer for OKCMAR, Emily K. Mitchelson, to jump on, give us an OKCMAR update, and to give us the winners. And we've got 5 seats available on the OKCMAR board for next year. So Emily K., I'm going to turn it over to you, and you get to announce the big news. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen, and welcome to everyone. I declare the meeting open for the OKCMAR board. I would just like to point out a couple of things that we've done recently. Kudos to our great leadership with Stephen Ligon. We have given a $23,000 donation to the Realtor Relief Foundation. There's been a massive diaper donation to the Infant Crisis Services. There's been a designation class each month this year, so take advantage of that. That's included in our membership at no extra charge. We also enjoyed a great family picnic at Scissortail Park, and we also had a wonderful and informative annual financial presentation to the membership. Also, there are NAR speakers. Tomorrow's the RPAC end of summer bash tomorrow. And now, drum roll please. Let me first of all introduce the OKCMAR officers for 2022. Our president is Steve Reese from Next Home Central Real Estate. Our president-elect is Carolyn Sims from Keller Williams Platinum. I, Emily K. Mitchelson of Chenoweth and Cohen, will be serving as your Vice President, and we welcome Vanessa Johnson as our Secretary Treasurer representing eXp Realty. And now, congratulations to our new board members who will be joining us for 2022. Jared Kennedy will be rejoining us. He remains on the board with Lime Realty. Donna Allen, welcome from New Door Realty. Also joining us will be Carol Tim of Metro Connect. Welcome Matthew McCaleb from McGraw Realtors, and welcome Monty Milburn from Chenoweth and Cohen Realtors. Thank you to all nominees, and congratulations to those who will be joining us. We look forward to seeing you next year, and I would like to encourage everyone to consider signing up for a committee, and please consider joining us for the Leadership Academy next year. It's a good way to get your feet wet. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Emily Kay. Thank you to all the nominees for both boards. It's going to be great to have you, and it was great to have so many wonderful nominees this year putting yourselves forward. So thank you, we appreciate it. We look forward to all of you getting more involved with us next year. We're back to committees. I can hear a big yell of relief on the Zoom call. So we're back to committees. Great way to get involved. We've got committee sign up open right now for OKCMAR. So if you want to be on an OKCMAR committee, please fill in that online form and sign up. If you're just dying to be on an MLSOK committee, you've got a little bit longer to wait. We do sign up for that next month. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but we've got, you know, those two horses in the race, and we're trying to keep everything in the right lane, which is perhaps more challenging some days than others. So thank you for bearing with us. I am now going to turn it over to Gary Jones, who I believe is with us, and he's going to introduce our guest speaker. And if I know Gary, he's going to be encouraging you to attend that end of year bash tomorrow. So Gary, to take it away. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you guys, and thank everyone for being on. Let me start with some really great news. We call the end of year bash a celebration because we want to celebrate all the great things that happened with RPAC this year. And RPAC has been a record-setting year for this year. Good news, we have already raised over $92,000 through RPAC, and we only have to raise another $15,000 in order to meet the NAR goal for this year, and that includes pledges that have already occurred. We've also had some great success in the major investor category. We've had 37 of our OKCMAR members step up to become a major investor, which means they've given our pledge to give $1,000 or more to RPAC for 2021, and we're really excited about it. But where we really have pushed the envelope is that we have a goal of 37% of the membership investing in RPAC, and we're at 49.5%. We're hoping to go over 50% plus of the membership investing in RPAC at the big event tomorrow. And that brings us to the end of year, our end of summer celebration bash, which is going to be at the Parlor, which is located at 11 Northeast 6th Street from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. It is becoming one of the top venues in the Oklahoma City area. There are 7 different food and drink entities that are located in the Parlor. We will be on the patio. It'll be a little bit warmer than we hoped it would be this time of year, but not 100 plus. So that's the good news, but it'll still be a little warm. But what will be exciting is there will be lots of great food and drink, a chance to socially network with others, and also to celebrate the success that we've had in RPAC. So if you have not signed up, you still can. You can send an email to me. That is gjones@okcmar.org, and we'll get you signed up. And don't tell anybody, but if you don't have time to do that, we still have enough space that you can show up, and I'm sure we won't turn you away. Second is that we have been working this year on the strategic plan, and one of the key highlights has been an effort to increase and review how we do our government affairs and advocacy efforts. And as part of that, we have been working on some changes and also working on some policy priorities for OKCMAR to pursue in the coming year. And one of those has been housing, not only from the standpoint of housing inventory, but also our efforts in order to make housing more accessible. And as part of that, approximately 2 years ago, the city of Oklahoma City, under the direction of the city council, began looking at and analyzing what housing looks like in the Oklahoma City Metroplex. That study was formally presented last Tuesday at the city council, and it was approved. And now the big step and the big moment is, what are we going to do with all of this great information? Because there's some big challenges that we face in Oklahoma City. As noted in the study, if you make above the average medium wage, then housing opportunities, whether they're rentals or purchasing a home, is doable, and there are lots of options. But if you're part of the 44% that don't make the average medium wage, then it is a challenge. Rental housing that you can afford in some areas of the city are scarce to almost non-existent. The ability to find a home that you can qualify for a mortgage in order to purchase in some areas of the city, again, is scarce or impossible to achieve. And one of the things that I'm excited about is that this housing study provide not only some great information, but more importantly, provide some great recommendations of what we can pursue. And your Government Affairs Committee and the advocacy component of OKCMAR has been digging deep into that process and has already begun the work of how we as realtors can become partners, collaborators, and even leaders in helping to change the housing market in Oklahoma City, where every Oklahoman, no matter how much money they make or their status in life, will have the opportunity of having a chance at a decent home or a home that meets the needs of their families. So that was one of the reasons that we're excited to present our next speaker. Our next speaker is Geoffrey Butler, and he is Director of Planning for the City of Oklahoma City. He oversees 46 employees of the division and office, including the Plan Development and Implementation divisions, the Housing and Community Development Division, the current Planning and Urban Design Division, and the Office of Sustainability and the Office of the Arts and Cultural Affairs. What's really exciting is that Geoffrey is responsible for implementation of Oklahoma City's comprehensive plan, which is called Plan OKC. For those of you who have not read or reviewed the plan, whenever you get a moment and you got a little time on your hands, you might take the opportunity, because everything you see that Oklahoma City is pursuing, whether it is housing, parks, transportation, streets, sidewalks, the whole bit, it's in that Plan OKC. And what's great about that is that it provides a lot of long range and current planning as we try to meet the current and future needs of the city. Jeff joined the city in 2009 after working for several years for Salt Lake City based economic and planning consulting firm. While here, he has managed a diverse array of projects related to comprehensive planning, economic development, market analysis, fiscal impact, socioeconomic analysis. I say all that is because he's very well qualified, but more importantly, has been engaged in major components of helping to improve the quality of life in Oklahoma City. So we're excited because Jeff is going to highlight the housing study for us and answer any questions you might have. This is a great opportunity because that's what we do. is provide dreams for those who are interested in purchasing and buying a home, but also through the association, we have engaged and collaborate and providing housing opportunities for Oklahoma Cityans. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the director of our planning division for the city of Oklahoma City, Mr. Geoffrey Butler. Geoffrey.
He is actually working on getting logged in right now, so he'll be with us in just a second. He said he was having Zoom trouble, so we can hold on just a minute. I believe he's working on it now.
So while he's working on that, let me do a little shout out. Me and Jessica Thompson had the great honor of representing realtors and OKCMAR on a advisory group that worked with the city planning staff in creating the housing study. And I know for both of us, it was a great honor, and we gained so much information and knowledge about housing in the Metroplex. And that's one of the reasons I think that OKCMAR is so actively involved and engaged, and hopefully working on implementation of recommendations from the study. As part of that, we have already engaged with the National Association of Realtors, and in the coming weeks, there is going to be a survey about housing in the Oklahoma City Metroplex among OKCMAR's 4,000 members. My hope is that each one of you will participate in the survey. It will serve as the basis for helping us to prioritize and identify housing initiatives and recommendations that we ought to pursue as an association as we collaborate with the city of Oklahoma City. So please watch for that. More details will be coming in the next 2 weeks. The plan is for the survey to actually go live, and it will be an online survey in the first week of this month. Jeff, I see you. So that means that you're on board, and I think you're ready to go. Is that right?
Yes, sorry for the delay. I had some Zoom and computer problems, but here I am. So hopefully this will last.
All right, Jeff, it's your show now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Got a presentation to share with you all. Okay, can you all see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. All right, well, here to talk about the Housing Affordability Study that the city has been working on for a little bit of time now. A little bit delayed by the pandemic, but you know, that's pretty common nowadays. But we're happy to have it done. Economic and Planning Systems, a consulting firm out of Denver, helped us with this. They've worked with the city a few times now, and we feel like they always do great work. So we are excited to get this adopted, or not, received by the council recently. Just last week, actually, we presented and received, presented to the council, and they received this, and we had what I thought was a good discussion about the issue. So here's kind of an overview of what we'll talk about today. I'll go through this probably in 15 minutes or so, and happy to take questions and discuss afterwards with you all. So I'll first talk about just kind of give you a summary of the document itself, findings, recommendations, and discussion. So looks like we've got, there we go. So a quote from the study that we felt like is worth highlighting here: embodies a further commitment to ensuring that the city's housing market remains not only competitive, but affordable to its current and future residents. So a lot of, some folks might wonder, well, why is the city interested in this? What involvement does the city have, or should the city have, in affordable housing? And I think there are a lot of answers to that. But you know, getting back to the basics, is the city is of course interested in the needs and welfare of its residents, and it really comes from there. And the question becomes, how much does the city get involved in this? And that's a fair question, and reasonable people will disagree on methods and involvement levels and all of that. But nevertheless, we wanted to give ourselves a good portrait as to kind of where we are now. So there's a lot of analysis and data in the study, which I recommend that anybody take a look at. And I might mention it's an update. Well, I shouldn't say it's an update. There is some overlap with the market study we did a few years back, but it is our attempt at understanding the current supply and demand and developing some strategies for both home ownership and rental, so that we can benefit lower income households. And typically when we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about households that are at 60% of the area median income or below. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people have different definitions. That's kind of how we look at it. When we talk about workforce housing, we're talking about people who would be making above that up to 80% AMI, or even higher, up to maybe even 100%, depends on the definition. So we had an advisory group that helped us through this. We had many focus groups. We had a community survey that we did, which was statistically valid. Had a lot of good response for that. A lot of analysis based on data from the survey, and of course, multiple data sources, publicly available data, etc. And our consultant has done a lot of work on housing around the country, and always brings that to the table, as well as, just we're always trying to kind of look at the state of the practice and see what's out there in terms of best practices that would fit here, or that we could tailor to work in Oklahoma City. So here are the key findings. We've got a strong and resilient economy, but not everybody shares in this experience. Renters confront limited housing options, unaffordable rents, and poor condition. That's always a concern. We have, we can have affordability, but what's the condition of those homes? Are they decent? That's a big concern, especially as you get down to the really low income levels. And then we want to look at the system. That's kind of how the city is involved in the system. We regulate a lot of things, including housing, and so we feel like if we were regulating something, we have some responsibility to make sure that our regulations aren't, causing undue restriction on the market and et cetera. So what the recommendations that we had from the study, just in a high overview here, we have recommendation to, of course, increase our inventory and diversity of affordable rentals, kind of a goal. Another goal is to preserve long-term affordability and habitability. It's, if the existing housing stock, of course, you want to focus on that, because if we can preserve something that already exists and keep it and enhance longevity of the housing stock, it's often easier and more cost effective to do that than building more quote unquote affordable housing. So another recommendation is to bolster the system through support services, and financial literacy is one of those. Counseling, tenant rights, we have an issue with here, and I'll get into this a little bit more. Of course, affordable home ownership is important for building wealth and for our neighborhoods. We want to look at our development incentives and expand funding sources and partnerships. So I think those are kind of some of the main objectives that we want to accomplish, strategies that we want to look into doing. So findings. Let's go through some of the data here. I have a few slides that just kind of give us an overview of our city's state of affairs. So employment, this is an employment index, and you can kind of see where we are, and the gold line there compared to everything's been kind of normalized so that you can see it all in one chart, just kind of to see the behavior of our community compared to others, such as, you know, Tulsa, Austin, Fort Worth, and the United States as a whole. So we're doing reasonably well as far as employment growth goes, and population growth for that matter. Population, here we are. The census came out. The census data has been released just recently for redistricting, and we're doing well in terms of population growth. In fact, the last decade we have seen growth that we have not seen for many decades, going back to the 70s. I don't have data at my fingertips for prior to that, but we grew at an annual rate of 1.6% over the past decade, which is higher than, as I said, any time in recent history, in my lifetime. I'll say it that way. Housing prices, another index that's informative. Again, you see Austin there at the top. We all know Austin's hot and has been for a while. We track pretty closely there with the United States, although we don't see as the troughs and the peaks aren't as pronounced, which is good when we're going through a trough. We don't want to be as pronounced. So, you know, we tend to be growing, which is good, and in a moderate way. Rental rates, and this is specific to studios, are a little on the high side compared to some of our peers, but so that's just one indicator that we look at. Here's a map showing the housing inventory, and of course, as expected, we see 75% of our new units are in the Northwest and the Southwest, and it's mostly single family development. So no surprise there. That's we're humming along, and there's just I would say a lot more growth happening out there than we anticipated when we did our comprehensive plan a short 6-7 years ago. We were putting that together. We knew we were going to grow. We've grown a little faster than we expected. Things are just happening fast. Income. In talking with our consultant, this is, you know, none of us are surprised to see this, but at the same time, it's a little always concerning when you see that our incomes and our housing prices are diverging. So you see kind of a level of divergence there. You see our income compared to the US tracking along very similarly, a little different volatility pattern, but we're in the same ballpark as the US income levels. And price, you can see that bottom line here with this chart is that the price is going up a little bit faster. The for sale prices, that is, for housing is going up a little bit faster than income, and over time that divergence can cause issues. This one is percent owner inventory affordable to households earning median income. So we're kind of middle of the road here. You can see again our peer cities to compare with, and the United States as well. So in terms of affordability, we look decent. You know, 60% of our housing is affordable to those earning the median income, which is a little better than the United States. Those coastal areas really make a big impact, of course, on this, and other kind of hot areas, hot metros. But let's talk about cost burden. Earlier, I mentioned the way we look at affordability. We break down the the households by their median income and what bracket they fall into. So on the bottom here, you see that we've broken it out by those different brackets. So you can see on the left axis, you can see the percentage of households that are cost burdened. So the two bars on the left, you see renters and owners this is folks in the range, the incomes up to 30% of the area median income. So low income people on the left side. And as you might imagine, they're heavily cost burdened. Nearly 80% of renters are cost burdened. And cost burdened, by our definition, is folks who pay 30% or more of their income towards housing costs. And again, as you might expect, as incomes increase, as you go to the right here on this chart, the cost burden lessens. You know, there are some people who make over 120% of the AMI who choose to pay a lot for their housing, but that's very, very small amount of people. So our concern is with those significant amounts of our population who are earning 60% of the area median income or less, who are cost burdened. And I might mention when you add transportation to the cost burden, which a lot of planners will do that, you have an even greater concern, especially in a community like Oklahoma City, where you must it's hard to get around. It's hard to get to a job without a car. We have a transit system, and we do encourage, our comprehensive plan encourages development along that transit system so that people can have the option of not having a vehicle so that they can decrease their cost burden for housing and transportation. So this is a key concern that we have, and one of the big reasons why we've done this study. So on this one, we have just wanted to point out, I mentioned before that it's not just about affordability, it's about the condition of those rental units or owned units. And here you see it broken out by the need for major and minor repairs by renters and owners. And there are some areas of concern, percent of housing in serious need of repairs. So there are kind of some areas that you could see in the city where this concern is more prevalent. You know, we see, for example, 25% of renters in the Southwest rural area have serious need for repairs. And the Northeast urban, it's 22% for renters. So these are concerns that we need to know about, and we have strategies to help us remediate these issues as we go down the road. So a little more detail on the recommendations that I mentioned earlier. First, talk about the funding gap, or kind of quantifying the scale of the problem. There's some big numbers here, but this was our attempt at just saying, all right, well, if we were able to just kind of fix this problem, how much would it cost? Well, if you look at it a certain way, if we were to address 100% of the need, it would be $1.3 billion would be the amount of money that would be needed. And so on as we go. There's actually a little glitch on this chart. I think I need to get the slide updated. So I'm happy to present this or give you guys this presentation if you would like. But yeah, this is just kind of the need that's out there. We don't, of course, there's no way we can meet all of that need. But what we're trying to do is do what we can. And, you know, it's not that the city's responsibility to provide, $1.5 billion to meet all that need. Some of it is, of course, providing funds to build housing and maintain housing, but there are a lot of other things we can do to meet affordability goals. So this is just to mention that Plan OKC does, of course, talk about affordable housing. It's with any major city, it's going to be an issue. It's going to be something that you need to keep your eye on. And so we talk about ways to do that in Plan OKC, expanding housing diversity, expanding housing choice, making sure that our neighborhoods have a diverse housing stock. That's really what the plan says about it. And so we're just kind of getting down the road with some more detail as to how to make those things happen. Wanted to cover a little bit from the community survey. So we asked many questions. These are just some of the answers. Support for accessory dwelling units, that top one. Accessory dwelling units are essentially where an owner, typically a single family home, the owner lives there and they rent out above the garage apartment. That's what an accessory dwelling unit is. And it's beneficial for a lot of reasons. It helps affordability for both the renter and the owner, because the owner can of course have that income stream from the rental unit, making their housing costs, reducing their housing costs. And of course the renter can benefit by living in a single family neighborhood, lower density if that's their preference, and benefit from an affordable rent. And we have a lot of our 54% of our renters support this, and 42% of our owners. That's citywide. When we look at certain areas of the city, the support is much higher. So when we would like to work this into our code update for the city and make accessory dwelling units allowable in certain areas. And so we will look to those results when we do that. Good support for neighborhoods with housing variety. The third question there asks people, how should the city be involved in supplying or ensuring an adequate supply of affordable and safe housing? And vast majority of renters said yes, and a substantial majority of owners also said yes. People didn't necessarily feel like the market will take care of itself. So recommended actions, again, kind of revisiting this, increasing inventory and diversity of affordable rentals is the goal. Preserving long-term affordability and habitability. Now the city has some programs that help people to rehabilitate their homes, but there's just not a lot of funding for that. So to the extent we can assist through whatever means, as I said earlier, maintaining our existing housing stock so that it lasts longer, that's going to be perhaps the most cost-effective way of ensuring affordable housing. Financial literacy, that's important. We have a big issue here in that we have a high loan denial rate, and we think that a lot of that ties back into lack of financial literacy. Some of it might also tie back into the fact that we have an issue where with this tenant rights, we have really weak tenant rights in this state. And if somebody gets into trouble, gets on their record, they can have trouble staying in a rental house. They can also have trouble buying a house when the time comes. So we have some recommended actions in the plan to cover the tenant rights issue. That's tricky because it involves going to the legislature, of course, and that's always a lengthy and difficult process. So let's look into these strategies, separating them in terms of renters and owners, habitability goals, making sure that and kind of finding a way to make sure that those are met is important. explore landlord licensing. There are various ways to do that with registry incentives and so forth. Just helping landlords to maintain quality housing and stable situations with their tenants. Support nonprofit supportive services. Again, the city shouldn't be doing it all. We have a lot of partners that are out there that can help. Preserve, I alluded to this, preserve existing inventory through major and minor rehab programs. So to the extent we can dedicate more funding to that, that would be a big plus towards maintaining our existing stock. Statutory reform, I alluded to a minute ago, having to do with the tenant rights. Most prominently, I think, is that's the most important thing I believe that we have a need for in terms of statutory reform. For the ownership strategies, this naturally occurring affordable housing is that's kind of our term for housing that it's typically housing that's been around a while. So it's it's not brand new and expensive. It's been around a while, it's still in good shape, but we want to keep it in good shape. And we want that for renters. We also want it for owner product as well. So enhance our down payment assistance program. I mentioned financial literacy. We feel like if we can make that might be an opportunity there where we could spend a little bit of money and have a larger impact, just helping people understand what it takes to be a good renter, to plan for the eventual purchase of a home, maintaining good credit, all these things that are necessary for folks to understand to successfully to just kind of have a stable housing situation over their lifetimes. Increase access to capital for small developers. We want to make sure we focus on the small developers because they are often the ones who are doing the nitty-gritty hard work in the urban core, doing these infill projects, which we would like to see more of. And then the pilot a community land trust. Community land trust can help stabilize. It can make housing more affordable, of course. It can help stabilize and just help, depending on the situation that a person is in, it might be a good option for them. But it's something we want to look into for a large scale redevelopment area. So housing system action items. And I've got a slide in here about funding, but the GOLT right there is just the bonds that the city uses for housing and economic development. We have, in 2017, we dedicated a small amount, only 10 million to housing, but MAPS 4 has 50 million dedicated to homelessness, but it's really all about affordable housing to prevent to keep people in housing, for those that are homeless, to put them in housing, and also more of a preventative measure to keep people from becoming homeless by helping them to have stable housing for those that are in a low income situation. Housing trust fund with a revolving loan fund, just giving us more options and more tools to be able to meet everybody's needs. Community education efforts. Of course, there's, this as a city, you're always looking at, how we can become more efficient in the review and development process. So that's something we are looking at as part of our code update, including the last bullet there, zoning modifications that we might be, we're actively going to be reviewing that over the next few months and a couple of years. Establishing targets and metrics, just goals to work towards, and targeting specific sub areas that where the need is great and where opportunities are available. So some closing thoughts. So there's public support for the recommendations. These are tailored to Oklahoma City, these recommendations. There are several in the plan itself. I've just kind of given you a high level overview. But we took a holistic approach to be just kind of see comprehensively what are the issues, what can we do about them. So as a reminder, the city is a convener. We have a lot of partners. The next step is to begin working on an implementation framework. So this document was not a plan, it's a study with recommendations. So the next step is to bring a resolution forward to the city council saying, all right, well, these are the things that we're going to work on next. And that'll depend on a lot of issues, including capacity of partners, priorities, funding, politics, and so forth. So we're looking forward to that. So with that, that's kind of my overview. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
So Geoffrey, one of the things that I think people get confused about is the whole issue of affordable housing. Unfortunately, when you hear the term affordable, people think it's people that have very, very little income or have no income at all. I think it's really important that you maybe talk about the wages and the types of individuals that fall in that category, because most people are amazed when they find out that the wages that these individuals make are teachers, Amazon workers, firefighters, police officers. They're not just people that are working a minimum wage job.
Yeah, exactly. And I mentioned homelessness, and kind of tying into what you just said, Gary. There are those folks out there that are in the very low income range, and we're concerned about those, and there are policies and these action items are targeted to them, but they're also targeted to the group that you mentioned just now. People who are just fresh out of college, people who are, teachers and police officers, people who are just really kind of more earlier in their careers. There's a surprising amount of instability, even with people who have decent jobs. A lot of people are still kind of paycheck to paycheck. And not every homeless person is out there, is a 20-year homeless veteran, so to speak. I mean, people experience housing insecurity at a variety of income levels, and there's a lot of need out there, and we have to, be cognizant of that and look at all these different income levels and what their needs are. And the good news is there's a lot that we can do to improve our situation. It's helpful to look at best practices occasionally, because we see some things that we could be doing better, such as the tenants' rights. Some things that would be a simple change, not that it's simple to get done, but a simple, straightforward change in the legislation and the law and the way our state works would make a big difference. But yeah, workforce housing and affordable housing, we're talking about our neighbors, we're talking about family members, and just a host of different people.
Oh, hi, Geoffrey. This is Jessica Thompson.
Hi.
So a few things. So CLTs, OKCURA, the Oklahoma City Urban Renewal, are they a form of a community land trust?
Not really, kind of, sort of, I guess, not the way we're thinking of it. I don't know that there is a good example here locally. And so for that very reason, we want to really explore that, and we frankly don't know a whole lot about it right now, other than that's probably something that might show up as one of our first actions to look into, because what you really have to do is just start looking into these things and seeing what the pros and cons are. And some things are just so complicated that it, or the funding requirements are so steep that it just takes time, and it takes many years to accomplish. So I'd expect that we'll start looking into that, just because it has potential. When that or anything else actually happens, it's hard to say. There will be some low-hanging fruit. I think that's a little easier to do. Fortunately, we have a lot of money coming from MAPS 4, but it's going to take several years to have that divvied out. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Okay. And then my other question is, can you go back to the slide that has the AMI on there?
Yeah, the kind of the bar chart slide.
Mm-hmm. For us layman realtors, can you kind of explain what that person might make gross income for that year under that, if they're under 30% AMI, like what kind of income are they making a year? Is that like someone that makes $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year? And can you kind of give that an example for each one so people have an idea of like, okay, that could be my daughter, or that could be my grandparents that are retired, or, just give them an idea of where those people kind of fall in line on that scale.
Yeah, good question. Can you still see my screen, or do I need to reshare that?
I don't know.
You'll need to reshare. You need to reshare.
Screen share it.
Yeah, you need to reshare it.
Let me throw this back up here again. Okay, so the median income is in Oklahoma City is around 55,000, but that's just that's what Google tells me real quick. I don't have so it depends on your household size. So we have, there's a chart when you're looking at somebody's median income. It all depends on how big their household is. So if somebody's coming in to a subsidized affordable housing development, they're going to ask them, okay, well, what's your income? How many people are in your household? Because of course that makes a huge difference to people, what their expenses are. So they have this chart, and the somebody who is 60% AMI with a household of 2, that income level is going to be a different threshold than in somebody with this 60% AMI with a household of 4. But if you say, generally speaking, our income is 55,000, then you can kind of go from there. What's 80% of that versus 30%. So let's see, pull out my calculator here. So 55,000 times. So somebody who's making 60% of AMI is making 33,000. So, and if you're working at Amazon, doing like 15, you're making just under that. So that would be, like Gary mentioned earlier, that is a full-time Amazon worker is just under that 60% AMI level. Of course, you guys know better than me what kind of home they could afford making that much. But
and that's a pretty high number. I mean, you have in the 51 to 60% AMI, you have 30% that are cost burdened. So that's quite a bit. And to me, I think it's probably even more than that. But
yeah, I and when we presented this to our planning commission, one of them, who is a financial advisor, he's like 30% is high. He's like, I tell people it's more like 25 is what they want to, don't try not to exceed that. So yeah, it's a big issue. It's unfortunate because a lot of our working population, They spend a lot of money on their homes and their transportation. If you think of all of that after they pay their rent, they pay their car payment, gas, insurance, some clothing, food, how much do they have left for food in some of these income categories, unfortunately. In others, it's not so much the poverty situation as well, how much is left for disposable income that they can use that would benefit our economy. So that's one concern when you have housing prices that are just too high, as there's not much money circulating in the economy, not as much as could be.
So Geoffrey, the next question is timeline. I know that, I don't know if you're on that, we're working with the National Association of Realtors to do a survey of our membership later this month to take some of the recommendations that you guys made in the report and try to figure out from our membership what those priorities are, and maybe even to flush out which ones they think are more important than the others, so that it helps guide us and what things we need to pursue in support of the study. So what are you guys looking at as far as timelines when you start to make recommendations to the council moving forward?
That's a good question. We've talked about it a little bit since the last city council meeting. I don't yet have a timeline because these things are going to take the time they take. We need to talk to our political leaders about these different strategies, and we need to assess the level of support we think we might have. And so those conversations will take some time. Not that we have to get it all figured out before we take this implementation resolution forward, but we have to get some sense of how what people are kind of willing to support, how much effort we think it'll take, and just kind of being realistic about all those timelines. So unfortunately, I can't tell you. Hopefully, just in a few months, we can get this resolution back and have something, an action taken by council and start. Maybe a couple of months would be great. Could be longer though. But I would say if your group has things that you think are important from this study that you feel like you could support or would feel like would be more effective, that would be welcomed. We would like to hear those things because that may inform how we choose to proceed. Because as I said in the presentation, we're working with a bunch of partners for the eventual benefit of the community here. So, and you guys are certainly one of those partners. You and lots of different aspects of the real estate industry.
Other questions? Comments? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, we had, you see the question in chat, Geoffrey.
Yeah.
Are there any programs that currently exist to help developers who are interested in this sort of building?
Yeah, and in addition to the usual federal programs, such as low-income housing tax credits, which help 60% AMI and below. The city has, I mentioned the $10 million earlier that we have set aside from the 2017 bond issue. I believe that there's still a little bit of that left, and so the city does have some available funds. The city also has some other federal funds that we utilize as well. So, if somebody is interested, let me know. Chris Varga, I don't know if you guys have met Chris, but he manages our federal funds, and there are various. There are a couple of funding sources and some nonprofits that work with us Um, but yeah, there are a few different options, and with MAPS 4, we're looking at it's hard to say exactly how that's going to be used right now, other than we're pretty confident it'll be, it's probably not going to be something that will be, it's probably going to be a little different than how we use the 10 million, I would expect, but we don't know enough yet to be able to say anything confidently about that. So without going into a whole lot of detail about the various programs, yes, there is some city money. Some of it is pure city money. Some of it is federal money that flows through us. So folks that are interested in affordable housing should come and talk to us.
So another question with the term affordable housing, the phrase that we're like to use is attainable housing, because as you know, there's certain regulations and requirements that fit those definitions. Do you think that it makes sense maybe to start couching this as about attainable housing, because using affordable housing carries connotations that people are perceptions that they have that are not accurately reflecting who we're talking about and who we're trying to work with in order to meet their needs?
Yeah, that's kind of a, what do we call these? That's been an issue, because sometimes affordable housing gets kind of a negative, people view it negatively. We use the term affordable housing just because of the tie-in to kind of these, I don't want to say, well, time honored for lack of a better word, but the way that HUD works and the kind of the system, as we mentioned earlier in the PowerPoint, works is typically tied to those AMI measures, and as in the industry have been referred to as affordable, but that's within the industry, right? I mean,
right.
We're talking to kind of residents in general, attainable might be a better word. We also like to use workforce housing, but that tends to be, in our definition, that's also tied to the AMI brackets. So yeah, I like attainable. I've heard that before. It's a good word to use, and maybe that's something to consider as we kind of publicize this and put on our PR hats.
I did want to mention that the National Association of Realtors, they are really big into community land trusts. And so there are grants out there that us realtors can take advantage of to help move forward in, working with the city or any city on community land trusts. So I want to put it out there that we can work with you on that. Okay.
Yeah, that's good to know. I wasn't aware that they're into that. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's the National Association.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And if any realtors are interested in that conversation, reach out to Gary and we'll get you involved.
Another question I have, Jeff, is that do you guys work much or collaborate or communicate with the other municipalities? In the OKCMAR jurisdictions, there are actually 31 municipalities that fall within our membership, and we try to monitor and engage with them. And of course, the level of activity on policy issues varies. I was just curious, especially since you noted that in what I would call that Yukon Mustang area, that housing is rapidly increasing, but there's not a lot of affordable housing that is occurring in those areas. And then in some of the inner city or core areas, whether it's the Village or Bethany or other places like that, that there's not much in the way of resources. So does the city collaborate or work with these entities to have these kinds of conversations?
I would say, you know, yes, we do, but a lot of the other thing to keep in mind is the city is relatively new. I mean, we've been using federal funds for provision and rehabilitation of affordable housing for a long time. But in terms of the city setting aside its own bond funds to do this, you know, that's a pretty new thing. So we're still, you know, in the MAPS 4 funding, of course. So we're learning, and that's why the study is so important. So yes, we do want to. We haven't made just because we're so new to this. We don't have a long history of working with these other cities for affordable housing. We coordinate with them a lot of things, including transportation and so forth, and infrastructure. But yes, we want to, and to the extent that would be beneficial to have some kind of a collaboration for the metro. I think that would be useful. You know, we're used to collaborating with a lot of different organizations, including the Housing Authority, and expect to continue that. So yeah, all of these folks are partners in one way or another. And, I think our main focus is just, our city boundaries, are less important than just providing affordable housing for the, metro residents. Of course, we use our resources within the city boundaries, and that's just a practical reality. But we want to make sure that people have places to live that are close to where they work. That benefits the city and the residents, regardless of what city border it happens to be in. So yes, we do want to coordinate and collaborate with cities, and I think that's something to keep in mind as we move forward, because other cities, in fact, we've I think it's Dell City. Some other cities have some programs that they've started that we're interested in and that we have our eye on, that we intend to talk with them about. We want to do what works here, and no matter what we do, we're always looking at the surrounding communities, comparing whether that be like, something like impact fees or whatever it might be. What are they doing? What are their programs? How have they been successful? And they do the same thing with us. So definitely want to do that.
Mr. Butler, this is Carolyn Sims, and I just want to reiterate what Gary and Jessica have said. NAR has a lot of information and resources available to you that other cities have used and that are larger cities. And so we definitely want to be a partner in being able to get those resources with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've used NAR materials in the past. They'll publish studies that are helpful to us in terms of providing data and also providing support for, certain certain housing types, and they will often support our market study, for example, that we did for Plan OKC. NAR put out some materials that were that said very similar things, only from a national perspective. So it's nice to be able to have that backup. So yeah, and those are helpful. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Geoffrey, I have one last question. So on the kind of the remedies of what could be done, how much of that would you say would really fall under, the city or the city manager making those changes, as opposed to the public?
Like of the strategies, how much of it? That's a good question. A lot of them are just, you need multiple players. So like this, one of my favorites is the tenant rights issue. That's going to be, the city needs to, we want to, I guess, lead that, but it can't just come from us. It's got to come from other organizations. And of course, it's the legislature that actually takes the action. So we need a lot of broad support for that, and that's something that we would reach out and try and get support from these other cities, not just from even from Tulsa, but from all these cities in our metro. Because if we can get or the League of Cities and Towns, is anybody we can get support from, because we believe that they all have these issues. It's not just unique to Oklahoma City. So that's where it's especially important to get support from as many, cities and nonprofits as possible, to just say, hey, look, this is an issue. It's not just this study that Oklahoma City did. It's, we're all seeing this.
So things like zoning changes, right? That's kind of a hot topic. A lot of people don't want certain types of housing next to other types of housing. Let's just say multifamily next to single family. Who does that fall under? Does that fall under the city employees? Does that fall under city council? Does that fall under the residents in the city? Like, who essentially has to say, okay, we obviously know there needs to be some zoning changes made, but how is something like that implemented?
Great question. So with the zoning change, and that's one of the reasons we asked some of the questions that we did, and why we kind of drill down into it and see what the preferences are, because people have different preferences depending on where they are in the city. So with a zoning change, say, for example, the accessory dwelling units, that would be a zoning change. And there are some neighborhoods that show strong support. Some neighborhoods, and these are neighborhoods that are in older areas of the city that you might think would be very similar, but they have different preferences. We know just through our experience working through cases that come through the Planning Commission, some neighborhoods are more open to, kind of higher intensity development and more infill. Some are very much not open to that. They want, things to stay precisely as they are, to have kind of just no change whatsoever. And that's something that we in the council have to keep in mind, because, every neighborhood, every area of the city is different, and that's okay. So we want to be cognizant of that when we propose zoning changes. And so, yeah, it's first of all, it's city staff doing an analysis and making a recommendation. Hey, we think this will work here. It's not going to work here. And this is kind of what the proposal is. The Planning Commission recommends, takes a look at that. And if they agree, they'll recommend that take this to council and let's make this the law of the land, so to speak. So that's the way a zoning change would work. And then furthermore, first you change the actual ordinance to make something allowed, and or change the zoning district possibilities within a zoning district. Then you go and actually change, what's on the ground or the map. You reapply zoning to the extent that it's desired by a certain neighborhood. For example, we know that some neighborhoods want more protection. And by protection, I mean they want to kind of preserve the way they are now. And so those neighborhoods we would recommend a different zoning district than those that are that want to see kind of different housing types and just more development happen.
I guess it's really hard, because like when you showed that map of Northwest Oklahoma City and Southeast Oklahoma City, you see a lot of single family development. What do you do when you know that the analysis says, hey, we need more multifamily in this price range to be able to live here and, live close to work or whatever. But then the neighborhoods aren't supporting that. Well, then what? Are we just stagnant? At what point is a decision made for the right reasons, as in getting people into housing so they're not homeless?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. And that's where it's really going to come down to some careful analysis and some, so this survey we think is going to be really helpful in helping us to determine what areas of the city would be appropriate to add greater density. And when we did Plan OKC, the applicable policy there says, you know, that we should encourage infill development in areas where it's appropriate. It doesn't say where it's appropriate. That's what we're determining now. And we're going to do our best through surveys and focus groups and stakeholder engagement to determine where those appropriate areas are. And when we go to the Planning Commission and the council, we will be able to say, these areas, we're confident we can expect a fair amount of infill. And then it's just kind of, is that sufficient? You know, is that going to be enough to accomplish the city's goals to provide additional multifamily housing? And I guess time will tell. We will see, you know, if there's a greater need or not. I'm confident right now we're going to have a pretty good area of the city where people will feel comfortable adding additional density, partly because it will come with additional protections. We want every area of the city and every neighborhood to feel like the development that comes is going to be is going to be consistent with their neighborhood character. And as I
What is
said,
that called?
for some people, what's that?
Is that like form-based coding?
It could be form-based code in some areas. Some neighborhoods are they're less concerned about whether you have a single family home or a duplex. They're more concerned about making sure that the form of the development and even, I guess I'll say, the style is consistent with their neighborhood. So, you know, that's how things used to be in a lot of our neighborhoods. Traditionally, there were, you know, a lot of in a particular neighborhood when it was built, they had fourplexes and duplexes along with a bunch of single family homes. So we feel like, well, we know that there are neighborhoods that are accepting of that right now. And so, but it's going to be a tricky mapping process to identify where all these zones should go and who exactly needs kind of what level of customization. And so, yeah, it's going to be a fun challenge. And we look forward to your input. Anybody who's interested, you know, we're looking for as many voices as we can. We had, you know, 20,000 touches with Plan OKC, 20,000, I guess, inputs. You know, you have people that participate, you know, multiple times, but we had a lot of involvement. And we hope for a lot of involvement in the code update too, especially when it comes down to this issue.
When did you say the code update is going to happen?
So it's going on now. We had a little bit of a shift in the order of operations because we had a billboard issue flare up, and so the council put a moratorium on billboards, and we had to do the sign code first.
Right.
So right now, though, we're putting together the kind of a draft framework of these zoning districts. So now we're getting to the good stuff, and we'll be kind of. So right now it's kind of behind the scenes, you know, developing a proposal to bring forward so that it makes sense to people. So that's going to be coming out, and we'll be having focus groups and participation opportunities in the near future. I don't yet have a timeline on that one, but things are happening this year, this fall.
So we've got to wrap this up. Jeff, thank you very much. Let's give him a big round of applause, even though I know we're all at home, our offices or wherever. Thank you so very much for taking the time, and we're excited and looking forward to working with you and your team as you guys move forward, not only just in the work that you're doing with the housing study, but all the other initiatives that you guys are involved in, whether it's the issues with the homelessness and transportation, and the list goes on and on. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity, and very much appreciated. And I welcome any input that and that you all have, and please stay in touch and stay involved.
We will do that. And I also want to point out that I just put out my email address. For those of you that are interested on these policy issues, this is a great time to join us. As Helen pointed out, that we're in the process of asking people to serve on committees. But the Government Affairs Committee is also working on, oh, did I put COM on there? Thank you, Helen. Org. That's what happens when you're typing real fast and talking at the same time. That's gjones@okmar.org, not com. I just wanted to remind you that if you're interested in serving on one of the work groups that's going to be working on these policy issues, send me an email and we'll get you plugged in, because the more of the people we have, the better representative we are of the membership. Helen, turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, you guys. And I think everyone really got a lot out of that. And please do reach out to Gary and to Geoffrey. And I'm sure that they would love the input. And as Gary said, we're certainly looking for more people on those work groups. So thank you so much. Thank you to and congratulations to the people who will be on our boards next year. And we will be talking to you soon. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.